Hello, Catherine Hahn. Welcome to Infinite Icons. Our mission is to capture success stories of leaders and achievers like you and share it with the world to inspire the generations to come. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, I would love you to give us a little introduction about yourself.
I am a career coach by trade. My company is Affordable Resume Coach, but I do all facets of brand development for a personal brand. So I focus on career development, workforce development, starting from, high school all the way till CEO level. So I work with all aspects from job identification to career fulfillment. So, and as far as the advisor side, I find that people usually have to navigate from the beginning to end, and typically everyone changes careers on average, they say 2 or 3 times in their lifetime, but it depends on when they begin. Working with people in the professional world and all the way down to high school students, I've discovered that people typically have a passion. I like to work on helping, clients and individuals identify this passion, right? So that's how I came into my current role as a career counselor, career coach.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Right. So I would like to know why you started this as your career, like a career advisor, and what prompted you to do that?
When I first graduated from UCLA, I originally had thought I was going to work as a curator at the Getty Museum. I was interning there, and I discovered that although I loved classics and I loved working at the museum, I was not fulfilled. I discovered that I was the loudest person there. So too many words. So it was a little overwhelming. And although I loved the studying, history and classical civilization, I discovered it was not my passion. And when I started working, I started looking for jobs. There's not much you can do with that kind of degree. So because I was so focused on working at a museum. And so I ended up in sales. My first job, I worked as an executive admin, and I was fired in the first week. I discovered I'm not very good at telephones. And so I remember crying and saying, "Oh my
Oh,
gosh, I cannot." I remember going to my roommates and saying that I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And then
absolutely. It is
confusion
devastating.
happens.
I mean,
And
it's the first job.
and so then I had someone help me look for, just back then, the internet just began, right? 1999,
Yeah.
2000s, right? So I went on the internet and I looked on a job board. I found a company, my first company, Mason Concepts, and I worked in sales. I literally just said yes to everything because I didn't even know how to turn on a computer, a PC at a Mac. So Macintosh back then, right? So I
Oh,
went, and then my first day of work, and I remember my boss saying to me, "Turn on your computer." I go, And so I
oh,
realized there's a lot of gaps that if you're not prepared for your job,
yeah, yeah,
basics, right? And so
yeah, huh?
I think a lot of personal experiences affected my long-term vision of what I needed as an individual, as well as
Mm-hmm.
friends I saw that were prepared for the working world. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just very observational. And so I ended up working in IT recruiting. And then I did that for a couple of years. Ironically, the company that I worked for, they separated and then they went off on their own. And I ended up working for one of the partners, working remotely as, again, recruiting. And then I ended up specializing in government recruiting for a while, City of Los Angeles and County of LA, and as one of their
Mm-hmm.
company employee. And then I learned all about celeb recruiting, and I learned about, so in my space, every time they had a new job, my boss would just say, "Would you like to try this?" And so I ended up recruiting healthcare, legal, marketing, just everything across the board, and government, right? And
So that became your learning field, basically?
learning field, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, when you become a recruiter, it becomes more like a boutique agency. They pretty much take whatever you can get, admin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I took on every job, and I filled so many jobs, but I still wasn't happy, which is,
Oh,
yeah, right. And then I was very good at it, making a lot of money for some of the 22, you know,
awesome.
150,000 back in that was a lot of money back then, right?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
I'm quite aggressive. And then, but all the while, but then I discovered, working for government recruiting, you have to have certain parameters in your resume that
Mm-hmm.
flows into the job, so they'll consider you. And so then I started helping clients write resumes, but I was already a good writer because of my degree. I wrote a lot of
Oh,
essays and papers. So,
mm-hmm.
so I just complimented that. And then I discovered all along that I was actually a pretty good writer. And then I discovered that was a separate field, and I just started writing. And then I discovered there was a certification. So then I became certified in that field. And then over time, as my clients would ask me questions, I would naturally coach them. And then I discovered there's another certification. So I became certified as an interview professional and a resume writer with PARW. So I'm a
So
certified.
at this moment, did you already have your government agency job, or had you quit that job?
Yes, I had transitioned out. And I actually explained to my
Okay.
bosses I wasn't really happy. They were actually keeping me on board, and they asked me if they ever want to come back. I'd always come back.
Oh.
I decided it wasn't for me just because my kids needed me at the time, and so it just became one of those jobs where I could work from home and then
Mm.
also be able to write. So I kind of work off hours, right? So I work whenever they're not around. And as they got older, I started coaching again. Then I decided to start coaching, and so I do both now. And then it kind of segued off into other directions with what I'm doing now. And on top of that, during COVID, my daughters were, going through some stuff emotionally because of, isolation, like every
Yeah.
child. And
Sure.
then I asked them, what do you want? You guys start thinking about doing something. You can't just sit around. It's going to affect your emotional health.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, okay. And so then they're watching ABC Nightly News, and they saw a story about the Little Free Libraries. And they go, can we do one? I'm like, will that get you out of the house? Right? So I said,
Yeah.
yes. And so, so we cleaned out our own library, and then they ended up asking a couple of their friends who were also kind of going through some stuff back then. And then I guess naturally I just give it advice. And then sometimes they just ask me a question, and it just kind of, I guess, organically really grew into something where I would mentor the kids, and they ask me questions about school, and I'm like, well, from what I know, and it was at first it was not, because it was not planned, and then it was almost meant to be in a way because it really truly organically grew. And so I think the difference from where I jumped in as a mentor was
Mm-hmm.
when they needed transportation, right?
Oh, fantastic. So it is your daughters who started the book club.
My daughters, Taylor and Layla, and then their two friends.
Okay.
And I found it was really good for their mental health, and they felt really purposeful, right? So
Well, yeah.
my goal in life in general is to find everyone's purpose, right? As far as a career coach, I want to know that for me as an adult and seeing a lot of kids are kind of like lost in generation wise, I think it's important. I think especially the COVID, I call them the COVID generation, the Zoom generation, right? They lost a lot of time. So for them to feel value and empowered by doing something outside of themselves, either through, work does give purpose. But if you find yourself doing work and projects that you discover like, oh, I kind of like this, maybe I'll do this. And I think a lot of times what I teach my students is if you don't ask, you get nothing, right? So don't fear asking. Worst case, you get rejected and you move on to the next person.
That's such a great advice. You want something, you cannot just brew it in yourself and nothing is going to happen. So go approach.
Yes, I think what's difficult, especially, I hate to say it because social media, is everything looks so easy to get, right? My pet peeve is hearing all about instant gratification, right? And so what happens when everything's so instant, people become less patient to get something, whether it be looking for a job or just anything, really. If you want to approach life with well, I'm not going to get that anyways. I'm not going to try. Then you'll never have anything, right? So I've taught my kids and all of our volunteers not only to ask for stuff, but be prone to saying yes, because you never know what's on the other side, even if it's kind of unusual, right? Well, unless it's illegal, right? So,
True,
yeah.
true. But how do
Yeah.
you tackle that fear factor? Everybody has that fear in them to try something new, or, it is usually one step ahead and three steps backwards. So that's usually the trend with everybody, I guess.
Yes. And I mean, the way that I approach fear, and everyone's always surprised when they find out I'm an introvert because they think I'm an extrovert because I'm never afraid to ask. The irony is because as a child, I was very introverted. I was a kind of child that would hide in the bathroom to avoid just people.
So many
Right?
people around.
I had like anxiety, social anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I understand this generation, right? And so even when I speak, if I speak in front of a crowd, I never actually don't truly do eye contact. I kind of look above their heads, but I don't think people realize that when I speak. Amongst large crowds, I try to just focus on my words. What I teach kids in terms of facing fears or addressing a challenge is to put yourself kind of outside of your body in the way that, say for instance, I guess a good reference, the kids that do sports, right? When they're in the
Mm-hmm.
zone, you just focus on subject matter, right? You just focus
Yeah.
on what
True.
your objective is. If you focus on objective, nothing truly seems truly overwhelming. So I say to kids, write a task list, right? Task list, right? Okay, so what I got to do get done today? Because for someone like myself, I have to do the same thing where I focus on particular tasks. So my objective today would be to write a resume, to pick up my kid, right? That's forget her, to have this interview, right? And so if you narrow, like I heard a podcast about narrow focus, and it
Yeah.
seems to work very effectively. So if your focus is to go to speak to a coach who you've never met before and ask him to recruit you, for instance, I would say, okay, first, get to know the coach's background, like A.
Mm.
Then okay, now they get the opportunity to engage, leave a phone call or email. Those two. Then three, and then ask to be meet in person. Do not be afraid of getting rejected, because worst case they say no, then at least you tried.
That's
So
it. Very true.
very simple. And then
Mm-hmm.
and part of life is failure, right?
Yes, that was my follow-up question. How do you handle, a humiliation and failure?
There's an old song, and it sounds kind of irrelevant, but it's an old song from Aaliyah. Right? Dust yourself off and try again. I always think that in my head, right? I said, you really just dust yourself off, just wake up,
Mm.
and what do you do next? Get up, back up, and go. Because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
if you think more simply, it's a lot more easier, right? I think that when you dwell, your only block is yourself. And so the only person at that point you can be mad at is yourself. You can't be mad at the world if you don't try. You're hindering your own abilities by thinking, I can't, right? So I always say, I can, and yes. Saying yes to opportunities just opens up your world beyond any, I would never imagine that
Mm.
Dynamite Book Club became like this, because initially it was like a small founding team, right? You got the four girls.
It literally started in your
Small.
kitchen.
Yeah,
So
it's literally small. Literally building a little library. I
that's
didn't know
it.
it's now 15 libraries, and I have three more in
Wow.
the garage ready to go. So I mean, these are the things
Mm-hmm.
that I look at in terms of scales, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
always say to kids, when you look at yourself, you don't imagine 10 years from now that you'll be an adult. Let's focus with that. And a lot of times the kids think, oh, I have plenty of time. But the thing is, if
Mm.
you maximize your time, this is the way I explain to a lot of kids who think they have a lot of time, right? Um, Depends on what your desire is and what age is and what your standard of living you want as an adult, right? And when is adulthood? When do you want
Mm.
adulthood to be? And what are your
Yeah.
objectives?
You take control of what
Yeah.
you want to be.
So you plan, but then you also have fun too. It's okay to have fun. You put
Mm-hmm.
your fun in, but then you really it's time management. It sounds cliche, but time management is number one. Vision boards are kind of something I've done with my kids since
Mm-hmm.
they're younger. And then
Mm-hmm.
you put on things on your vision board what you want. And what's
Mm.
funny is that every time I've done a vision board, I get exactly what I want in some form, way, or another, right?
Oh.
And so it doesn't exactly always come out as the way that you want, but somehow it happens, right? So I
Mm.
would say to envision your future and what do you want, right? And try things. Don't be afraid to try things, because a 9 times out of 10, you try things, you're like, oh no, it's not for me. Then you don't waste your time, right?
Mm.
Right? Then you'll discover that's your passion or not your passion. So, I say, okay, as long as you keep volunteering in the community or whatever, right? I want kids to give back, because I think it's also good for their soul. It's good for their mental health. And then it kind of reminds them where they're from, right? And it gives you
Mm.
perspective and experiences. So I think whether it's not just workforce volunteering, I believe in, I think, getting hands-on experiences, programs, just learning and expanding the worlds is what it'll make it a better generation in the future. So I'm hoping one day, even if it's one person at a time, that I can help. I think like that's the volunteering aspect I enjoy, is to give back that way. And of course, I have my
Mm.
regular clients. So I've had some clients do some amazing things. So like one guy who just works as a radiology, like a manager for an office, and
Mhm.
he loves to be given strategic planning for growth, and he became one of the top 10 podcasts and on cancer. Yeah, I didn't
Oh,
know he was
okay.
gonna do this, right? So he
Mhm.
grinded it out, and great guy. And then he also made like a program, which I don't think I'm allowed to disclose, that helps caregivers. That's a good way of saying it. So like just
Okay.
incredible things. So people have capacity to do so much more if they're given ideas.
Yeah.
That's the part where I like to work on the business development side people in terms of their marketing capabilities and how they
A
can.
little guidance would take
Yeah.
them a long way.
Yeah. So I like to work with entrepreneurs as well. So
Mm-hmm.
as well as give feedback, right? So these are all the different aspects of what I do. So yes, I kind of do. And I also do property management, but that's a separate thing. That's more for my family. But that's
All right.
that's truly a headache.
Oh, that's such a benevolent act of you, Catherine. It's
But,
wonderful to know. Yeah. I mean, guiding younger generation is where the foundation is laid. So, I mean, you are building up such strong, I mean, people who are aware of charity and
yes.
hard work. So that makes a lot of difference.
Yes, and thank you for that. I think that that's part of the growth and the learning of kids.
Mhm.
It also builds a certain sense of appreciation, hope,
Yeah,
and to see just a bigger world, and that their contribution truly matters, right? Because they're
truly
appreciated.
matters. Yeah.
It's also good for their emotional health as well.
And
So
on the other hand, they do get the practical taste of the real world.
yes,
So it is not,
experience.
I mean, if they go out of home and school, there is a huge world out there which they have to be capable of navigating through. So,
Absolutely, and be able to make wise decisions,
mm.
right? Not based on a meme or of course,
Yeah.
they're a different generation in terms of how they learn.
Hmm.
Capacity wise, I think they're much more capable than what as I've seen. I think that our generation is less inclined to give opportunities to people that are younger. But I tell people all the time, you take a 15-year-old kid, you'd be surprised their capacity, right? If you
Um,
give them tasks and purpose, 15, 16, even at 14. But you never
First of all, they are out of that introvertness.
Yes,
Right, they are with people and they have to manage. You may not be able to jot down everything they do, but they are getting that practical experience, which is precious.
and to see them really really invested and reaching out to people and truly getting out of their shell, especially after experiencing what they experienced,
Mm,
it's always very surprising because the people sometimes that the student volunteers that you think that would not come out of their shell are the ones in front, but
okay.
you end up enjoying feeling purposeful, which is fun,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
It is, yeah.
the
It's
capacity,
a good feeling, yeah.
yeah.
So going back on your own career, is there any moment that if you look back now, you feel that was a disappointment or a failure back then, but today you feel that was a great step in your journey?
I think so. When I was in college, I think that going to a large school like UCLA is, of course, a great university, right?
Huge,
Got
yeah.
in, did really well at first, and then I just didn't do so well because I was too distracted by the entertainment, right? Of too many
Mm,
friends, going from introverted to extroverted for a short period of time. I learned
mm.
to make friends. I learned to navigate. I called it Representative Catherine was out. That's what I say to the kids: put your representative out, just so it's like fake it till you make it. If you feel uncomfortable, that's like
Oh, that's such a
think of someone that's
interesting
confident.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. So my
Mm,
husband's extremely confident, right? And so I say, whoever you feel is the most confident person in your life, think of what their mannerisms are, right? What is it about them that makes them engaging? What is it about them that makes them feel like you're the only person in the room? And then,
very important.
yeah, so I have them think about it too, right? And then
Hmm.
they tell me, and then I give them feedback. As far as myself, so when I was in college, I would do that. I would just rev myself up to go and be
Mm,
extroverted, even if I felt uncomfortable. If I knew more about the networking opportunities in college, so my college volunteers, or right before they leave to college, I say, okay, you have to go to the college counselor. There's one on campus. It's a career counselor. Meet with them, identify an internship with them, request an internship, right?
mm.
Put yourself out there, have your resume ready. If you need a resume, I will help you with that process, right? This is a good way to do career exploration. So I wish I had me when I was a kid, because I just kind of wandered around, right? If I had explored more, I probably would have truthfully been more in healthcare. I really like the healthcare sector as an adult, even. But now
Hmm.
I'm around it all the time because of both my parents. But I could have seen myself. That would probably be my biggest regret is I should have stuck with studying it to be in the sciences, because I think I probably would have been like a dietitian or something if I was to
Mm.
continue, which I might still explore for as a side gig. But I would say you always have a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, right? So
Okay.
I don't necessarily push having to go to college if you don't. Not college is not for everybody. There's
Mm.
trades, excellent trades, right? But I say wherever your job is, identify a job that has a gap. But I always say to everyone, can you take this job and be in this job in the next 5, 10 years, right? What is your long-term plan? So this is the whole planning aspect of it, right? And
Mm.
what do you see your life like? What do you want for retirement? So I don't do the financial aspect. I just do a general, how much is enough for you to feel fulfilled? And will this pay your mortgage or your apartment, whatever lifestyle you want?
Mm.
Are you looking to
Mm.
travel? So I take it on a broader scale so that people understand what their own expectations are. Because a lot of times people will pick a job. Oh, it sounds pretty good. I'll just do that. I'll just be a admin,
Yeah,
right?
it's gonna be very short-term focus. Actually, I have a well-paying job, and I'm, delivering what is required for my job, and that's it.
Yeah.
So what you say makes so much of an impact for everybody's own future.
Yes, exactly. I had to leave my job for a couple of years. So I remind especially women about what's their own capacity? What are your plans? Do you want to work?
Mm.
And then sometimes these are girls in the 20s that do I want to have kids? What stage in my life do you want this as part of your career? Will you be playing
Mm.
this? Because this is not necessarily going to happen the way you want it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I say, if you're going to be a career woman, what are expectations of childcare? Is that something that you want? Because I think a lot of times I see from personal perspective, and many clients I've had, as they said, I've taken a sabbatical for 10 years. I thought I was only going to take a sabbatical for 2 years. I don't
Mm.
chose this, right? I said, there's no problem. There's just, you take there's different ways. I even talk about schooling, even for adults, so going back to school as an option, or change a career change,
Yeah. So
right?
what actually is your advice for people who want to change the career path or who's starting late? So
Yeah.
what would you advise them to do?
I would say, it sounds very cheesy as well. If you go on the internet, you just explore jobs over 50, right? Whatever age,
Mm.
or jobs
Mm.
over 40, or return to work jobs. I mean, the internet is actually full of resources in and of itself and articles. But of course, career coach is a good way to get guidance if you're completely lost, right?
Mm.
Because it's like someone that navigates you through your own thoughts and feelings. Because sometimes people don't realize like what they truly want. Because again, now you're back at square one. Explore.
Yeah.
You volunteer at these type of places on your off time, just do 1 or 2 days a week, and see if this is the kind of environment that you like. The people, the people in the environment, right? The
Mm.
process, right? What your expectations are. What is your function? What will we be doing? Is this something that you can do? And if it requires more schooling, what kind of
Yeah.
schooling are we looking at? Are you looking at 2 years, 3 years, and how are you gonna finance that? These are all
Mm.
questions, right? So
It is actually like the person is in one place and the world has moved on,
yeah,
and the person has to actually fill in the gap with
yeah.
a very short time.
Yes, with a very short
Uh,
time. So that's why you're
Ve-
going to really explore. So explore
mm.
all the different options. I mean,
Mm.
nowadays community colleges, I heard some are trying to migrate over where they even have bachelor's degrees eventually. I heard that some are working on that right now for California.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
and so community colleges is a great way to explore career exploration, right? They have
Yeah.
even if you go on YouTube, you can explore and shadow online and see like what a career looks like, right? So,
Yeah.
but the great thing, or the reason why career exploration is so important, is because when you choose, say, a higher education program, it's your financial investment for 4 years, right? So do you invest into a school that doesn't even have the program that you want? Liberal arts colleges are excellent. They give you the opportunity to explore. I highly recommend them. Yeah, it's a little more expensive, but then you do finish usually within the time that you're expected to, right? Public college is excellent too. Larger resources, great research, great
Mm.
access. So
Mm.
it just depends on the child, right, and what their needs are. So I always say to the child that when you go to college, you really have to explore and ask and do the opportunities within the school, join clubs, put yourself out there. But because if you don't get networking comes with meeting people.
Yeah.
It takes one conversation to change your world, right? So it really does. And that's why my husband always says a closed mouth never gets fed. And that is literally the case. And he's in sales also. So
Mm.
he built an entire company with his very loud mouth.
So we go back to where we started. Try something. Try and then decide.
Yes.
Mm,
If you don't try
oh,
it, then you never know what the outcome will be if you didn't
mm,
put yourself out there. So always
very true.
there. That's what I say.
Right. So you wear so many hats. So how do you actually juggle between productivity and being organized? Because I find it very hard.
I
More
have a
keeping.
planner. I
So
live
you go the analog way.
a very thick planner that is very full. So with that said, that is what I go by. I never
Mm,
had a planner until like 2 years ago when someone had told me that I needed a planner. I am neurodiverse apparently. I have the ADHD, which is part of my energy. So
ah.
I think that's the reason why I have so much energy. I wake up at 6, I go to sleep at midnight. I literally am doing something every hour of the day. I say write things down, whether it be your phone or through your planner. Keep yourself
Mm,
organized and try to put something purposeful every day. And I say, it's also good as affirmations, self
mm,
affirmations. If you have a difficult time and if you're more of a negative person, people do
mm.
gratitude journals. I still write down, I'm thankful for this. It just kind of puts you in a better mood for your day. And then say, what is my objective for the day? Right? So
And probably writing it down in a journal is much better than writing it down on your phone because that straight away takes you to a bigger distraction.
exactly, which
Because
yeah,
today anybody just holds a phone for no reason, just a text message,
yes.
and it takes you. It's a rabbit hole.
Yes, it is a
So
radical social media.
it is. So you never know the time. It's just gone. You're
Yeah.
sucked into it.
Yeah, but I say for people in general, if you have a addiction to Instagram, real, I say
Mm,
give yourself 15 minutes, right? If you have your downtime, get 15 minutes of, I call it just lazy time, like zoning.
yeah.
Everyone has a zone, right? I say,
Restricted to 15 minutes and you
15
can
minutes,
be
but set a
done.
timer,
Yeah. See,
right?
that helps
Television,
actually.
1 hour, right? Whatever you got.
Whatever. Uh-huh.
Yeah, but you don't have to live day by day like this. This is like something more like, I guess, more like me, where the joke in my family is like, I'm inefficient yet efficient. So, like, because I get distracted sometimes, right?
Mm.
And I always get something done every day. I don't let myself off that way. And even when I scroll on the phone, most people scroll social media. I'll scroll looking for people's jobs for these volunteers, and I forward them all the
So
time.
you are actually working. You're not whiling
So
away
I work
time
yeah,
all the time.
I work
Hmm.
literally all the time.
So how does your day look actually?
So weekday, I guess
Pattern of the
I
day.
carpool a
Hmm.
lot of my day, and then between carpool, I take care of my parents' business, and I have property managers I hired too. So I work in conjunction with them, and then I also do my resumes between, and then I talk to clients. I'm scheduled out all day, and then I do carpool
Hmm.
again, not every day, but some days. It really is about time management and
Time management. Yeah.
prioritization of what you need to
Mm.
get done.
So we really need to have a great priority in place.
Absolutely.
It doesn't work otherwise. Yeah.
Yes. And then, of course, I'm trying to work on personally, I'm not very good at self care. So
Mm.
my self care is literally at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning to take with my husband to the beach, and he walks the dogs, and I have a kind of a strange hobby. I do metal detecting. Ironically, it is work though.
Ah,
Metal
so
detecting.
you go to the beach every day?
Not every day, most days.
Okay,
Yeah.
frequently. Okay.
So
That's so nice.
I would say people should have a hobby. So whatever it is, whatever it brings them joy,
Hmm.
do one hobby. Although it's physical work, it's like kind of strangely my meditation time, where I gotta do what I want to do. So
The beauty of hobby is that all the senses are involved in that. So you are basically shutting down from the hustle that you
yes,
go through all the time and then just focus and be involved in your
yes,
hobby.
yes.
So,
And so then you feel like fulfilled. So that's my own
hmm,
whatever brings you joy and happiness, even if for 5 minutes, it's still like that extra.
yeah.
So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Of course, might not be every day, but
yeah.
do invest yourself in that moment for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
it kind of also takes you out of, say, I think a lot of challenges for people when they're looking for careers or finding something of where they feel a purpose. I think the biggest thing is if they don't take a minute for themselves and start just kind of center yourself, you really don't know what you want. If you're just going, I say that the issue with people also is when you're constantly busy, you don't stop to think, am I happy? Right? So because a lot of times when you're busy,
You're engrossed in that.
yeah, you're just engrossed in being busy, and then you're distracted from yourself, right? So like what I personally learned is keep busy, yes, but take a minute and enjoy something. Like enjoy, if like a pet, enjoy your pet, right? Take a minute and I say be present. And then that's what I'm personally working on
Yes.
for the past year, even for myself. I'm not the most present person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of my condition and whatnot. But I try to remind myself if I'm not happy, then I'm obviously outletting the wrong direction, and it causes emotional issues for yourself, right? Because you don't prioritize yourself, then you feel a little bit empty, right?
And internal validation is much more important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because validation elsewhere is kind of, but when you have the internal validation, it's the best.
Best. Yeah. Yeah. Be true to yourself and
Yeah.
go with it.
Yes.
Yeah. So before we close, Catherine, what's your advice to those who are getting out of college and looking for a career? What should they be doing?
I would say write down everything that you've done. Writing kind of stimulates your thinking. I actually have exercises with my clients, the ones that say, for instance, someone works in clinical research or whatnot. So then I say, okay, so then you worked here. Okay, write a little bubble. And you start drawing lines. Who do you know from there? Contacts. Boom, boom, boom. I start from very basic, and then I have them kind of grow and see, well, what did you learn? What aspect did you enjoy? Who did you speak with? And so then you kind of do that all along. And then if you have any professors that are in the same sector, maybe they can guide you. Maybe you can reflect back. Ask them, what resources do they know? I always ask them to network.
Oh, yeah.
Networking. Of course, you have a resume, but who do you go to first? Your first circle. Friends, family, and professors or coworkers. Ask them first. Whilst you're also searching online, be open to jobs that are not what you exactly want, right? What I mean is, say if you want to go
not your comfort zone.
Yeah. So I actually had this conversation recently with now a third-year student. He had difficulty finding an internship. I told him, let's look at the mistakes that were made, and then let's go, how can you refine it for next year? And I say there's certain hiring periods, right? So if you're going to say even after you graduate, you should have an internship already lined up. I actually tell kids, so you graduate, say May or June, by the previous December or January, February, you should already have something locked in, because a lot of opportunities open in September of the previous year. And then also use LinkedIn, massive resource, right? I say reach out to recruiters, right? So I say the big thing is number one, networking. Have a resume ready to go by September of your senior year. Have an elevator pitch ready. But basically, when you go to a networking event, go to the ones that you're not sure, just go, right? There's a million ways. There's conferences in town. Again, this is just being out there, exploring, learning, ask questions. There's these organizations, right? There are just the chamber, like Newport Chamber, whatever, Irvine Chamber. You ask them, what do you like about your career? You go, it's like shadowing almost, but when you speak to someone, there's so much more input that you receive. You ask them basic questions. What do you like about your job? What's the schedule like? How long did it take for you to get there? What would you do that's different? You get real guidance from people within the industry. So I always say there's a million ways to put yourself out there and engage with the community, right?
Yeah.
But there's a million ways to communicate with people nowadays. I've actually had people tweet. I had a client that actually tweeted the board, like VP of talent, and the guy tweeted back. And he had been looking for a job for a year. So there's a million ways to engage. It's just creativity and engaging. It just depends how much you want something, right? So whether you want to be aggressive, don't be a stalker, but like just engage with intention.
Yeah, since we do have the social media and the resource available for everybody equally, so it is on our hands to extract as much as we want.
I met a guy at a gas station once. I just asked him a question by accident, and then he happened to be one of the guys from NWA. I have no idea, right? Right? Yeah, like it's like so random. So you never know until you randomly engage with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the biggest thing. So
yeah, that's true. Be open and absorb as much as you can in all possible ways.
Absolutely.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much for your time today. I totally appreciate your time with me today. It was insightful and a lot of inputs. Thanks so much. Wish you all the best.